If you'd like to try what we make at Superstition, it's as easy as going to our website, superstitionmeadery.com, clicking on Web Store, and you're shopping. Make sure you follow us on social media because we release new products almost every week, and you might just find your next favorite craft beverage. Cheers. So Devin, we're gonna try some really exciting Pyments that I've never had these since they've been packaged, and I don't know that anyone's really ever had anything like what we have to offer here.
No, I've tasted these when they came off the packaging line, but I might be one of the few people that's actually had these where they're at currently, so I'm excited to try them side by side here.
So one of the things we're best at Superstition is adapting, right? So we had intended to have a very red wine Pyment out of the Grenache that we bought. Turns out it's much lighter in color, a la rosé, orange wine almost. It's definitely a little richer in tone than most whites, but I would say this is a white Grenache Pyment. So it's California Grenache grapes, not left on the skins very long, fermented with Arizona honey, and then aged in 3 different barrels. So Pyments are one of my favorite things of all time.
For sure.
I love ports, I love sweet wines, and the first example that we're going to try was aged in a Sauternes barrel. Have you had Sauternes before?
I have not, so this was really exciting for me to try.
So Sauternes is considered by many wine drinkers to be the finest example of sweet white wine out there. You know, you think of like Gewürztraminer, Riesling, that sometimes can be sweet, right, and delicious, but Sauternes is in a class of its own. I've had one of the most famous examples of Sauternes, Chateau de Cam, at a really fancy, probably the fanciest restaurant I've ever been to once in Copenhagen. And it was fantastic. And the first thing that came out of my mouth with a table of brewers was, this tastes just like mead. Which is kind of, and they were like, yeah, it's wine, but with that residual sweetness from the grapes, it tastes like Pyment. So I thought that'd be an awesome pairing, a great barrel to try and age this particular Pyment in, which is gonna be fun to see how it turned out here in a minute. We also decided to use our red wine Pyment, Aphrodisia, the barrels from it, to age this to see how that turned out. And then we went crazy, man. Peach brandy.
Peach brandy.
Now, I've never even had peach brandy, but we got a peach brandy barrel, and it just felt like this stone fruit and the ethanol, the booziness from this brandy could really elevate what we did with this. So let's see how we did. So we'll start with our Sauternes barrel-aged Vestalia. So we have thematic elements in the names of what we do and in our labels. And so Vestalia was a midsummer Roman festival where lots of shenanigans went down. So we thought that'd be kind of cool, a la Aphrodisia. Wow, so you can see like, okay, white wine approaching that orangey wine sort of color. Like we've actually made orange wine here.
Yeah,
so we're getting some color.
It looks like orange wine, yeah.
We're getting some, I would imagine some tannin from the grapes, but man, the nose is just Sauternes and honey. A little bit of oak. Dude, that's amazing. The savoriness, the umami that's just tickling the side of your tongue when you're drinking this. I mean, there's obviously honey in this. There's grapes, there's oak, but it's so savory. Like I want to just keep drinking it and I want to eat food with this.
Yeah, it'd be incredible. I'd love to do a dinner pairing this with something, but this is incredible.
Wow. And I remember, I haven't had Sauternes in a long time, you know, world's been crazy the last couple of years.
For sure.
Hasn't been a lot of traveling going on. I haven't sought out a Sauternes bottle myself, although I was drinking port the other day. But this is awesome. It's what I remember Sauternes tasting like. And in my mind and my palate, like I can kind of like compartmentalize the different elements, but obviously it's one glass. They're working together in harmony. That is fantastic. You know, it's funny if you found someone that was a Sauternes fan and you just told them, this is Sauternes, like you wouldn't even know it was, and then you're like, hey, oh, by the way, this is actually mead that happened to be in a Sauternes barrel. I think their mind would be blown. All right, so we're getting a little richer in hue because this was in a red Pyment barrel, one of our Aphrodisias. And we're talking 1 or 2 barrels, depending on which one of these variants at the most. This is super small scale mead making. I mean, behind us are 200 barrels. A lot of these are single barrel versions of things. And There's a couple reasons for it, right? One is we don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yep.
Barrel aging is still the magical side of mead making. There's a lot of science that happens in that room, and there's a lot of magic that happens in this room. And so we don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to invest like all of what you've got into one idea, but that keeps us on our toes. It keeps us discovering new things all the time. Totally different nose. I'm thinking, to me, it smells like a tawny port. Like, not totally, but I'm getting elements of like the tawny port aroma in the glass, which Aphrodisia sort of resembles without that boozy kick that you get from a fortified wine. It's obviously in the same family, but very different. And the finish, especially for me, is that kind of red wine character coming through.
It's a huge red wine character. Tannins, big purple grapes. It's great.
And it's funny, you get all of that from the staves.
Yeah.
You know, when you take one of these barrels apart and you look at the profile of the stave, you see, it depends, right, on a lot of factors, but usually you get about like a 1/4 inch where you see these lines. It's almost like tree rings, but it's liquid lines, these rings going into the staves. And through temperature changes and humidity changes and even just moving barrels around, the liquid's going to go in and out of the staves. And when that happens, with alcohol being a solvent, we're going to extract these flavors and, again, come up with something that maybe no one's ever tasted anything exactly like this.
Yeah, this is the most fun part to me. I love playing with barrels. You get such different varied results from all of this, and this is the best part, trying something like this where we just throw them into a bunch of different barrels and this is what comes out.
So your background's in brewing, you're fairly new to mead. What are some of the differences that you've noticed?
I think mead is a lot more versatile. Brewing, there's the traditional styles and you can get certain things, but at the end of the day, you're held within certain restraints. We can do so much in so many different stages of the process to change things. We can add ingredients all throughout the process. I really like how we can come up with like dessert wines that aren't just like cloyingly sweet. Whereas in beer, if you get anything that's residually sweet at all, it's going to be cloying and you're not going to want to drink it. But this, we can play with sweetness. We can play with so many different, with acid, something you would never play with beer really. So you have a lot more techniques you can play with and different results, and you come out with crazy stuff like this.
Yeah, I find that, from all the, home brewing and then collaboration brewing that we get to do from time to time, there's certain things that you have a little more leeway with brewing or mead making. Some things you can't screw around with over here, but in the back end you can. And I think it's interesting to find those differences with, like what you said, with stylistic differences. We get to define, like in this case, kind of what is this?
Yeah.
When no one's ever had it, because there's no one to say, oh, it can't be that, because it's never been done before.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of when you're doing sour and blending in beer, where you have barrels, you can play with different things and blend them all together. We can do that, but we can do that with every step of our process, and I really like that part of it.
All right.
This one will be fun.
I tried this out of the barrel. It was one of the best things I've ever had.
I like it a lot. I've made peach brandy a couple times, and
you've made peach? Nice.
Yeah, so this is a little pet project I like.
So we're kind of back to the similar hue of the Sauternes barrel aging. So I imagine the peach brandy went in clear and then, maybe pulled out some character from the barrel and color, but we're not looking for a big color, contribution from this barrel. We're looking for flavor and aroma.
The aroma's there.
Wow. That is, never smelled anything like it.
Yeah.
It smells, if you just were like, guess what this is, and I didn't have the context of mead or barrels, I would be like, oh, it's some kind of a cocktail with maybe peaches in it.
Yeah.
This bee really wants to try it.
I know, he's all on me.
That is unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, it is peach brandy. It really came out in this product. You get the base, but the peach brandy it really, really pops. Wow.
It's sweet, but even in the very beginning, the attack of the flavor, right? It's got acid.
Yeah.
It's got balance. It's got booze. And it's like competing with the sweetness from the honey and then the peaches. Even though we didn't add peaches to this, you can taste peaches from the peach brandy, which is also surprising to me because we've gone down to Oso's distiller and we tried a couple of different meads through the Rotovap, and we did a Cider and we did Aphrodisia and we did a traditional mead, and it was really amazing how that vinous character from Aphrodisia and the apple character from this out of time Cider was just a traditional Cider. You could still, even through that process of distilling it, get apples, get wine, and here you're getting peach that was distilled from a peach wine into a peach brandy that went and absorbed into a couple of staves, and we reabsorbed it into this mead.
Yeah.
Wow, this is fantastic. I think when people try this, I mean, really, they're going to be really surprised, pleasantly surprised, and super happy to try this. So, man, I might have to take a case home. I've only done that a couple times.
You gotta fight me for that one.
Man, cheers.
Cheers.